John did not expect revelation to feel like collapse. Exiled on Patmos, he was not seeking visions of terror, only faithfulness in silence. Then the veil tore. What he saw did not expand his understanding of reality. It destroyed it. Time bent, space dissolved, symbols breathed. A throne burned at the center of existence, and history revealed itself as a living thing. The Jesus he once leaned against now stood as fire, voice, and judgment. John realized the universe was not structured the way humans imagine. Reality was thinner, closer, watched, and once seen, it could never be unseen. John stood suspended between comprehension and collapse, grasping for language that could anchor what his eyes were absorbing. Yet every word he reached for fractured under the weight of what pressed in around him. Because what unfolded before him was not a scene to be observed, but a structure to be entered. Not a message to be decoded, but a reality asserting itself, demanding recognition. He had walked with Jesus. He had leaned against his chest. He had heard parables, seen healings, watched the dead rise. Yet none of those memories prepared him for this unveiling. The mind that once categorized miracles as interruptions of nature now understood that nature itself was the interruption. What John was seeing did not break reality. It revealed it. His instinct was to describe, to translate, to tame the vision into sentences that others could grasp. But each attempt failed him, because human language is built to describe surfaces, not depths, appearances, not foundations. The moment he tried to assign metaphor, the vision resisted him. This was not symbolism pointing elsewhere. This was elsewhere pointing back. Then the voice came again, not as suggestion, not as invitation, but as command, a sound that did not travel through air but through existence itself, instructing him to write, not because writing could contain the revelation, but because obedience was now the only way to remain standing. John realized in that moment that revelation was not born from human curiosity, but from divine insistence. He was not documenting imagination. He was recording exposure. The words he would write were not meant to simplify heaven, but to confront earth. And as he obeyed, the vision widened, peeling back the illusion that heaven was a distant realm reserved for after death. Instead, it revealed heaven as a governing layer pressed against every moment. Unseen yet decisive, active rather than passive, authoritative rather than abstract. The world John had known, the Roman roads, the prisons, the exile, the churches struggling under pressure, all of it now appeared thin, like a veil, stretched over something far more substantial. He understood that what humans call reality is not the deepest layer, but the most fragile one. Above and within, it operated a realm that did not react to history, but authored it. Angels did not symbolize forces, they executed commands. Thrones were not poetic language, they were centers of jurisdiction. Voices were not echoes, they were decrees. And the most unsettling realization settled into John's spirit with quiet certainty. Everything was being watched, measured, and sustained at every instant. Nothing drifted, nothing happened alone. Even Patmos, even exile, even suffering were not evidence of abandonment but coordinates within a larger order. John felt the temptation to recoil, to shrink back into the familiar comfort of faith, as belief rather than faith as exposure, because belief allows distance, but exposure demands surrender. Yet the voice did not permit retreat. The unveiling continued, pressing past John's personal fear and expanding outward, as though to show him that this revelation was never about him alone. It was about the true architecture of existence. It was about showing the churches, the persecuted, the faithful, the wavering, that history was not spiraling out of control, but moving under supervision. At this point, before the vision descends deeper into thrones and scrolls and judgments, there is a necessary pause, not to diminish the weight of what is being revealed, but to acknowledge that revelations like this are not consumed casually. Before we continue,
If this revelation is stirring faith, awe, or holy curiosity within you, take a moment to like, comment, and share. Subscribe to the channel, and if you would like to bless the channel, click the super thanks button and leave an offering of any amount or become a member. That support allows this work to continue, to dig deeper, to bring clarity where mystery presses hardest. Now, as the vision resumes, it moves beyond John's personal disorientation and opens outward, revealing that what he is seeing is not an isolated moment but a standing reality. Heaven does not flicker into view and vanish. It remains, it operates, it rules. John is no longer merely an observer on an island. He is a witness positioned at the seam between worlds. He begins to perceive that time itself is subordinate here, that past, present, and future do not advance in straight lines but converge before the throne. Events humans label as not yet have already been weighed. Outcomes feared on earth have already been addressed in heaven. This realization does not erase suffering, but it reframes it. Pain is no longer meaningless, it is contextualized. Persecution is no longer chaos, it is permitted within limits. The churches, struggling under Roman power, are not forgotten, they are known by name. John understands now why he was commanded to write, not to satisfy curiosity, but to fortify endurance. Revelation is not meant to inform speculation, it is meant to stabilize faith when the visible world begins to lie, and as the vision stretches further, drawing John's attention away from himself entirely, it becomes clear that this unveiling is not about escaping Earth, but about seeing Earth truthfully for the first time. As the vision deepens, John becomes aware that he is no longer looking outward toward scattered phenomena, but inward toward a center. And this center is not abstract, not symbolic, not conceptual, but alive, deliberate, and absolute. Because the throne room reveals itself not as a location within the universe, but as the source from which the universe derives coherence. What unfolds before him is not chaos dressed in glory, but structure beyond human engineering. An order so precise that it does not require explanation to assert its authority. The throne stands as the axis of existence, immovable and sovereign, and John understands instantly that everything he has ever known, every movement of history, every rise and fall of empires, every breath drawn by creation, aligns itself either toward this throne or away from it. There is no neutrality. Around it, hierarchy is not imposed, but intrinsic. Beings are positioned not by ambition but by function, each fulfilling a role that sustains the harmony of the whole. Authority here does not crush, it stabilizes. Power does not dominate, it directs. Light emanates not as illumination for visibility, but as revelation of will, exposing truth rather than merely banishing darkness. Sound does not echo randomly. It issues forth with intention, each vibration carrying purpose, as if the universe itself listens before it moves. Even motion is no longer accidental. John perceives that movement in this realm is obedience made visible, action responding instantly to command. What humans experience as natural forces are exposed as secondary effects of a deeper causality. Light is not merely photons, it is permission. Sound is not vibration, it is decree. Motion is not momentum, it is response. The throne governs not by constant intervention, but by continuous presence, sustaining reality moment by moment, holding it together, not through strain, but through will. John realizes that what terrifies humanity about power is not power itself, but power, divorced from wisdom, yet here wisdom and power are inseparable. Intelligence saturates the throne room, not as accumulated knowledge, but as total awareness, a knowing that does not learn but encompasses. Nothing surprises this center, nothing escapes its scope. The cosmos, once imagined as vast and indifferent, now appears intimate and attentive, relational rather than mechanical. Stars do not burn because they must, but because they are sustained. Laws do not operate independently, they submit. Even time bends in reverence here, not progressing forward as humans experience it, but standing open, accessible, and transparent.
John senses that history is not unfolding blindly, but unfolding towards something, drawn forward, like iron filings toward a magnetic center. Purpose is not assigned afterward. It precedes creation itself. Every creature, visible and invisible, finds its meaning, not in self-definition, but in orientation. To face the throne is to exist properly. To turn away is to
unravel. This reframing strikes John with both comfort and terror, because it means nothing is meaningless, but it also means nothing is autonomous. Freedom is real, yet it operates within relationship, not isolation. The throne room exposes the lie that independence equals life. Instead, life is alignment. John watches as beings move in perfect coordination, not because they are programmed, but because they see clearly. Their obedience is not forced, it is inevitable in the presence of unveiled truth. Disorder exists only where vision is fractured. Sin is not merely disobedience, it is misorientation. The farther a being drifts from the throne, the more incoherent it becomes, until chaos emerges, not as an equal force to order, but as the absence of alignment. John begins to understand that evil has no creative power of its own. It only distorts what already exists by severing it from its source. The throne remains untouched by rebellion, unthreatened by resistance, because its authority does not depend on compliance. It simply is. And because it is, everything else must decide how it will relate to it. Even the rebellion of angels, the violence of nations, the suffering of the faithful, all exist under this unshaken center, permitted but never enthroned. The realization humbles John beyond fear. He sees that worship in this realm is not flattery but recognition. Creatures do not praise to please God. They praise because seeing clearly leaves no alternative. Worship is the natural posture of understanding. Silence would be denial. And in this throne room, nothing pretends. Masks are impossible. Pretense dissolves instantly. What humans call faith is simply sight delayed. John now grasps why the churches needed this revelation. They were not failing because they lacked strength, but because they lacked sight. They were measuring reality by what pressed against them instead of by what sustained them. Rome appeared powerful because Rome was visible. The throne appeared distant because it was unseen. But now the hierarchy is reversed. Rome shrinks into a temporary instrument. The throne expands into the only permanent reality. John senses that the vision is reordering him internally, recalibrating his understanding of fear, success, loss, and victory. Martyrdom is no longer defeat. Survival is no longer proof of favor. Everything is reassessed by proximity to the throne. Those closest to it burn brightest, not because they seek prominence, but because they reflect its light without obstruction. Those farthest from it collapse inward, consuming themselves. The universe is revealed not as a battlefield between equal forces, but as a kingdom with one center and many responses. And as John absorbs this, he understands that the throne room is not merely where God is, it is where reality makes sense. Outside of it, existence fragments into confusion. Within it, even suffering finds context. The vision does not answer every question, but it renders every question secondary to a greater truth. There is a center, and it is occupied. As John's awareness stabilizes within the throne room, his attention is drawn outward from the throne itself to the beings that surround it, and what he encounters dismantles every assumption he has ever held about worship. Because what unfolds before him is not a ceremony performed at set intervals, but a living system without pause, without fatigue, without interruption, revealing that worship here is not something done, but something that is. He sees the living creatures first, not as ornaments of vision, but as active participants in sustaining the reality they inhabit, beings whose very existence is interwoven with perception and proclamation, full of eyes, not as grotesque excess, but as total awareness. Seeing in every direction at once, inward and outward, above and below, perceiving the fullness of the throne, without blinking, without turning away.
Their voices rise not in repetition, born of
habit, but in declaration born of sight. Because they do not remember holiness, they witness it continuously. Holy, holy, holy is not a phrase repeated for emphasis, but a recognition that holiness has no edge, no boundary, no conclusion. John realizes with unsettling clarity that holiness is not merely a quality God possesses alongside power or wisdom. It is the atmosphere in which he exists, the environment generated by his presence, the condition of reality nearest to him. To be near the throne is to exist inside holiness, the way a creature exists inside air, not as something observed, but as something breathed. The elders, seated yet ever responsive, do not rule independently, but mirror the order of the throne, casting down their crowns not as symbolic humility, but as constant acknowledgement that authority here is never self-generated. Every crown exists only in reference to the throne. Every seat is derivative. John perceives that their actions are not rehearsed but inevitable, because recognition produces response, and response sustains alignment. Worship here is not flattery offered upward. It is alignment enacted outward, and as their voices rise and fall without rest, John understands something that shakes him more deeply than fear. Creation continues because worship never stops. The universe is not sustained by blind forces or mathematical inevitability, but by continuous acknowledgement of its source. Worship is not a reaction to creation. It is the mechanism by which creation remains coherent. When the living creatures declare holiness, they are not praising an attribute. They are reinforcing reality's orientation. Their proclamation keeps the universe facing the right direction. John senses that if worship were to cease here, existence itself would begin to unravel. Not because God would weaken, but because creation would lose its alignment with truth. He sees that worship is the gravity of the spiritual realm, the force that holds everything in place, drawing all things toward their center. Without it, even angels would drift. Without it, time would fracture. Without it, meaning would evaporate. The elders understand this intuitively, which is why they do not negotiate worship, schedule it, or ration it. They do not ask whether it is deserved. They see, and therefore they respond. John realizes how small human worship has become by comparison, reduced to songs and rituals measured by emotion and convenience, when in truth, worship is participation in the sustaining rhythm of reality. On earth, worship is often treated as expression. Here, it is infrastructure. The creatures do not worship to feel close to God. They worship because they are close enough to see. Their ceaseless declaration reveals that rest in this realm does not mean inactivity, but perfect synchronization. There is no exhaustion because nothing resists. Resistance is what drains. Alignment restores. John feels the weight of this truth press into his own. Memories of churches struggling under persecution, believers tempted to abandon faith when worship seemed costly or dangerous, and he understands now that worship is not optional decoration added to faith, but the act by which faith stays alive. To cease worship is not neutrality, it is disorientation. The creature's many eyes expose another truth that unsettles him. Nothing is overlooked. Worship is informed by full awareness. They do not declare holiness in ignorance of suffering or rebellion or judgment. They see all of it and still declare holiness, because holiness is not contradicted by judgment or suffering, but revealed through them. The throne room does not deny pain, it contextualizes it. The elders, representing the fullness of God's redeemed purpose, respond not with questions, but with surrender, because surrender here is not loss, but participation. John begins to see that worship is not silence before mystery, but agreement with truth, even when mystery remains. As the declarations continue, John senses waves of stability moving outward from the throne, rippling through unseen realms, anchoring stars, restraining chaos, maintaining boundaries humans cannot perceive. The universe is alive because worship is alive. Even judgment, he perceives, is not interruption, but realignment, a corrective movement restoring orientation where distortion has spread. Worship does not compete with justice, it fuels it. Worship does not ignore rebellion,
It exposes it by contrast. In this environment, nothing pretends, nothing flatters, nothing performs, everything responds. John understands now why the creatures never cease day or night. Time does not govern worship. Worship governs time. Day and night exist because worship precedes them. The cycle of existence turns within the larger cycle of declaration. Creation does not wake God with praise. Praise wakes creation to God. This realization humbles John beyond measure because it means the universe does not revolve around human need, fear, or ambition, but around recognition of who sits at the center. Yet within this humbling truth is unexpected comfort. If worship sustains creation, then creation is not fragile in the way humans fear. It is held, constantly reinforced, perpetually aligned. Even when empires rage, even when believers suffer, even when the earth groans, worship does not stop, and therefore hope does not collapse. The throne room does not panic. The creatures do not change their song in response to human rebellion. Holiness does not fluctuate with history. John feels the temptation to reduce what he is seeing into encouragement, to translate it into reassurance for suffering churches. But the vision refuses simplification. This is not comfort in the shallow sense. This is assurance grounded in structure. Worship is not something believers do to invite God's presence. It is the acknowledgement that His presence already defines reality. The elders' crowns falling again and again reveal that even honor must be released continually, or it becomes distortion. Holding on to authority, identity, or reward without reference to the throne is how rebellion begins. John understands that the fall of angels, the corruption of humanity, the violence of history all share the same root: misdirected orientation. Worship corrects orientation. And as the song continues without end, John realizes that this revelation is not meant to inspire louder singing on earth, but clearer seeing. To worship is to agree with reality as it is, not as fear presents it. Creation continues because worship never stops. And worship never stops because the throne never ceases to be worthy, not by moral evaluation, but by ontological truth. The throne does not earn worship, it generates it. And as John stands within this living declaration, he understands that every moment of silence on earth is not absence of sound, but absence of sight. And that revelation has been given not to add knowledge, but to restore vision. As the ceaseless worship continues and the throne room pulses with ordered life, John's attention is drawn to something that had been present all along, yet unreadable until this moment: a scroll held firmly in the right hand of the one seated on the throne, sealed completely, inaccessible, final, and its presence introduces a new weight into the vision, because this object is not radiant like light, nor resonant like sound, but heavy with implication, carrying within it the gravity of history itself. John understands instinctively that this scroll is not merely a record, but a resolution, not information, but outcome, containing within it the meaning of all that has been, all that is, and all that will be. It represents destiny, not as possibility, but as decision, judgment, not as reaction, but as completion. Every unanswered prayer, every injustice unaddressed, every promise delayed, every evil left unchecked, seems bound inside it, and John feels the tension of creation converge on this single object. A mighty proclamation echoes through the throne room, a call that does not ask politely, but demands reality to respond, asking who is worthy to open the scroll and break its seals, and the question reverberates, not just through heaven, but through every realm of existence, probing angels, powers, dominions, searching for one whose authority matches the weight of what the scroll contains. John watches as silence answers the call, not because the beings present are weak or ignorant, but because worthiness here is not measured by strength, rank, or proximity to the throne. No angel steps forward, no elder rises, no living creature responds. Heaven, so ordered and alive moments earlier, now feels suspended, and John realizes with growing dread that this silence is not procedural but catastrophic. If the scroll remains sealed, history remains unfinished. If no one is worthy, then suffering has no answer, justice has no conclusion, and creation itself is trapped in perpetual tension, longing without fulfillment. The implications crash into John's spirit all at once, and he breaks down, not quietly, not with restrained sorrow, but openly. Because this is not disappointment, it is existential grief. His tears are not for himself, nor for exile, nor for persecution, but for the realization that without divine intervention, reality itself is unresolved, suspended between promise and fulfillment, directionless despite structure. He understands that morality without resolution becomes cruelty, that hope without fulfillment becomes torment, and that a universe governed but never concluded would be unbearable. The weeping of John is the weeping of creation, finding itself unable to reach its intended end. It is the grief of knowing that order alone is not enough. Order must move toward restoration. And then into that silence and sorrow comes a reversal that redefines everything John thought he understood about power and authority. One of the elders speaks, not with urgency, but with certainty, instructing John to stop weeping, because the silence has not indicated failure, but preparation. Worthiness has not been absent, it has been misunderstood. The elder declares that the Lion of the tribe of Judah has conquered and is worthy to open the scroll, and John expects, as any human mind conditioned by power would, to see strength manifested as dominance, victory expressed as force, authority revealed through overwhelming presence. But when John looks, what he sees does not align with expectation. At the center of the throne, standing where power should be most concentrated, he sees a lamb, bearing the marks of having been slain, alive yet scarred, victorious yet wounded. The sight disorients him, because it violates every assumption about how authority is achieved and exercised. This lamb does not seize the scroll, he does not demand it. He does not assert dominance, he simply takes it, and the act itself carries more authority than any display of force ever could. John realizes in that moment that conquest in this kingdom is not measured by destruction of enemies, but by absorption of their violence. Power here is not the ability to avoid suffering, but the authority to pass through it without being undone. The Lamb's worthiness is not derived from invulnerability, but from faithfulness unto death. And this reframes judgment itself, because the one who will open history is the one who bore history's worst weight. Authority is revealed not as distance from pain, but as willingness to carry it. The Lamb stands at the center, not because he overcame suffering by bypassing it, but because he overcame it by enduring it without corruption. John understands now that the seals were not opened earlier, not because heaven lacked power, but because history required a specific kind of victory, one that did not merely overpower evil, but exposed it, exhausted it, and rendered it powerless through self-giving. Love. The Lamb's scars are not remnants of weakness, they are credentials of authority. Only one who has entered fully into the consequences of rebellion without becoming rebellious himself can rightly judge and restore. As the Lamb takes the scroll, the entire throne room responds instantly. Not with hesitation, but with eruption, because the tension that had held creation in suspense is now released. Worship intensifies, not because something new has been discovered, but because something long awaited has finally been secured. John perceives that the Lamb does not receive authority as a reward. He reveals authority that was always his, now made visible through sacrifice. This moment exposes a truth that shatters human frameworks of leadership and success. In the economy of heaven, surrender is not loss of power, but its fullest expression. Authority flows from alignment with the will of God, even unto death, not from resistance to it. The Lamb does not contradict the throne. He reveals its heart. The scroll, once unreachable, is now accessible, not because standards were lowered, but because worthiness was demonstrated in a way no created being could achieve. Angels were powerful, but had not suffered as creators. Elders were faithful, but had not borne the weight of sin. Only the Lamb had entered fully into creation's brokenness and emerged without distortion. John realizes that history will not be resolved by increasing force, but by unveiled truth, and that judgment itself will be administered by one who understands suffering from the inside. The scroll is no longer terrifying, it is hopeful. Its opening will bring judgment, yes, but judgment that heals, restores, and completes, rather than merely condemns. John's tears cease not because the stakes are lowered, but because they are finally secure. Existence will not remain unresolved. Destiny is not abandoned. History is not an endless cycle of pain. The Lamb stands, scars visible, authority unquestionable, and in that image, John sees the ultimate redefinition of power, where the deepest strength is revealed through the deepest surrender, and the universe moves one step closer to completion, not through domination, but through love that refused to turn away. The moment the Lamb takes the scroll, the throne room does not merely respond. It detonates into alignment, as if every layer of reality had been waiting for this precise action to release a tension held since the foundation of the world, and John witnesses something no human framework can fully contain. Heaven and earth converging, angels and humanity collapsing into a single movement of recognition, past promises and future fulfillments folding into the present moment. Worship erupts not as noise but as convergence, a harmony so vast it absorbs every voice without erasing distinction. Because this worship is not uniformity, but unity. Countless beings responding from their unique vantage points to the same unveiled truth. New songs rise, not because the old were insufficient, but because something has occurred that had never occurred before. The Lamb has taken the scroll. History is no longer sealed. Destiny is no longer suspended. Judgment is no longer abstract. John sees angels numbering beyond calculation, elders casting crowns with renewed urgency, living creatures intensifying their declaration, and then something even more staggering unfolds. The sound expands beyond the throne room itself, reaching into creation, drawing in every creature in heaven, on earth, under the earth, and in the sea, as if existence itself is being summoned to acknowledge that its resolution is now in motion. John realizes this is not symbolic exaggeration. This is structural reality responding to a decisive act. Heaven does not celebrate prematurely. It responds because something irreversible has occurred. The Lamb, taking the scroll, signals that history has crossed a threshold from anticipation into execution. The convergence John witnesses reveals that separation between realms has always been provisional, a consequence of limited perception rather than actual distance. Heaven was never absent from earth. It was unrecognized. Humanity was never excluded from the throne's concern. It was awaiting redemption. Angels were never indifferent observers. They were participants restrained until the proper moment. Now, with the scroll in the Lamb's hands, restraint gives way to movement. John perceives that worship here is not escape from the world, but affirmation that the world is about to be addressed. This is not celebration detached from suffering. It is the declaration that suffering has an expiration date. The unity of voices does not erase grief, but frames it within hope secured. Every era of history seems present at once: the faith of the patriarchs, the cries of the prophets, the obedience of the martyrs, the prayers of unnamed believers whispered in secret, all converging in this moment, because the Lamb's worthiness validates every act of faith that trusted God without seeing the outcome. John senses that time itself bows here, that chronology loses its tyranny, because the end is now present at the center. Future victory speaks backward into past endurance, giving it meaning that could not be fully grasped when it was lived. The worship does not merely honor the Lamb for who he is, but for what his action now guarantees. Authority is no longer theoretical.
Power is no longer delayed. The scroll is not opened yet, but its possession alone changes everything. Heaven knows this. Creation feels it. John understands that the universe does not wait to see how events unfold before responding. It responds because the rightful one has taken responsibility for unfolding them. This realization presses upon him with immense clarity. The world is not saved by ideas, movements, or resistance alone, but by rightful authority exercised through sacrificial obedience.
And at this pivotal juncture, before the seals begin to break and the consequences of the scroll's opening cascade into visible history, there is a necessary pause, not as interruption, but as invitation, because revelations of this magnitude are not meant to be consumed in isolation. Before we continue, if these truths are stirring awe, faith, or holy urgency within you, take a moment to like, comment, and share this message so it can reach others who are searching for meaning beyond appearances. Subscribe to the channel, and if you would like to support this work directly, consider clicking the Super Thanks button or becoming a member. That support allows these revelations to continue going out, deeper research to be done, and more voices to be reached with clarity and reverence. Now, as the worship continues without losing intensity, the focus of the vision tightens again, because celebration does not replace consequence. The Lamb holds the scroll, and that means the world is about to be confronted with what it has become. John senses that the joy of heaven is not naive optimism, but informed certainty. Heaven knows what the opening of the scroll will unleash, yet it still rejoices, because whatever follows will be governed, measured, and purposeful. The mystery now unfolding is not whether judgment will come, but how it will serve restoration. John begins to understand that the scroll does not contain arbitrary punishments, but necessary reckonings. Events designed not merely to expose evil, but to dismantle it. The Lamb's authority ensures that nothing released will exceed its purpose. As the scroll remains momentarily closed, anticipation replaces tension, because the worst fear of unresolved existence has already been answered. What remains is execution, not uncertainty. John realizes that from this point forward, history is no longer drifting toward an unknown end. It is moving toward a revealed conclusion. The worship that fills heaven is not escapist praise,
but strategic alignment, creation positioning itself rightly before what is about to occur. Angels do not sing to avoid the coming judgments. They sing because the judgments are just. Humanity is not excluded from this song. Its faithful echoes are already woven into it. John sees that the convergence he is witnessing is not temporary. It is a preview of the final state toward which all things are moving, where heaven and earth are no longer perceived as separate domains, but as one restored reality under rightful rule. The scroll has not yet been opened, but the world has already changed, because authority has been placed where it belongs. And as John braces for what the breaking of the seals will reveal, he understands with sobering clarity that what follows will not be chaos unleashed, but order enforced, truth revealed, and a creation long disoriented, finally guided back toward its intended end. As the Lamb begins to open the seals, John realizes immediately that what unfolds is not the eruption of uncontrolled disaster, but the precise release of what had already been weighed, permitted, and bounded long before it reached human awareness. And this realization alters forever how chaos itself must be understood. Each seal does not introduce something new into existence, but exposes what has already been operating beneath the surface, restrained by authority until its appointed moment. When conquest appears, it does not ride unchecked. When war follows, it is not unleashed blindly. When famine and death emerge, they do not roam freely. Each force moves only when summoned, advances only when allowed, and stops when commanded, revealing that history's most terrifying elements have never been sovereign actors, but instruments constrained within limits they cannot cross. John watches, shaken but attentive, as human history is revealed not as a battlefield between equal powers, but as a domain governed even in its darkest moments. The horsemen do not invent violence.
They amplify what humanity has already chosen, accelerating consequences that were already set in motion by rebellion and pride. Yet even in this acceleration, restraint is unmistakable. Authority is visible, not in prevention alone, but in regulation. Nothing is permitted to consume the whole. Nothing is allowed to erase the possibility of repentance. Nothing proceeds without purpose. John understands now that judgment is not God losing patience, but God refusing to allow corruption to masquerade as permanence. War is not proof that heaven has lost control. It is evidence that heaven has allowed humanity to see where its choices lead when unrestrained by righteousness. Suffering is not divine absence, but measured exposure, revealing the cost of misalignment with truth. Justice is not delayed because it is weak, but because it is deliberate. Each seal exposes the myth that evil is autonomous. John sees that evil does not expand infinitely. It strains against boundaries it cannot see, colliding repeatedly with limits imposed by the throne. Even the most violent upheavals unfold within parameters that preserve the possibility of restoration. This is not comfort in the shallow sense. It is clarity. The Lamb does not intervene to soften every blow, because history must be confronted honestly, yet he never relinquishes control. Authority is exercised not by constant interruption, but by decisive permission. John begins to understand that restraint is as much an expression of power as intervention. Evil operates on a leash, and though it thrashes and terrifies those caught near it, it cannot devour creation itself. The seals reveal that chaos is not the opposite of order, but order's response to sustained rebellion, a corrective exposure designed to bring truth to the surface. John watches as martyrs cry out, not for vengeance but for completion, and even their cries are answered, not with dismissal, but with timing. They are told to rest, not because their suffering is insignificant, but because justice must arrive at the right moment to heal rather than merely punish. The patience of heaven, John realizes, is not indifference but strategy. History is being guided toward an end that resolves rather than perpetuates pain. As natural order itself trembles, John perceives that creation is not collapsing. It is reacting, groaning under distortion, while still held together by the same authority that sustains the throne room. Fear begins to loosen its grip on him, replaced by sober awe. The seals reveal that nothing happens without context. Even when the world appears abandoned, it is still governed. Even when evil seems victorious, it is still temporary. John understands now that revelation was never meant to terrify the faithful into despair, but to anchor them in truth when appearances lie. The Lamb opens each seal with calm resolve, not urgency, not hesitation, demonstrating that authority is not reactive. Evil is not invited, but it is permitted to reveal itself fully so it can be judged completely. And through it all, John sees the most unsettling and reassuring truth of all. History has never been out of control. It has always been restrained, measured, and moving toward an end. Evil cannot escape. John realizes the vision is not fading but settling into the present, revealing that revelation was never meant to pull believers out of the world, but to return them to it with clear sight. It is not an escape plan, but an unveiling that exposes reality as it truly is, alive, governed, and moving toward restoration. The throne does not disappear when judgment begins. It remains. The Lamb does not withdraw, he reigns. Nothing John has seen suggests abandonment, only relentless involvement. The world is not neutral ground, but a contested space already claimed by rightful authority. Revelation is written not for the powerful, but for the faithful who are tempted to lose heart. Endurance is not passive waiting, but active alignment, with truth over appearances. Suffering is not defeat. Exile is not accident, and hardship is not final. Heaven is not distant, but layered over the world, and nothing done within it is insignificant. Revelation does not call believers to flee the world, but to live within it with courage, clarity, and hope, knowing the throne still stands, the Lamb still reigns, and restoration is already underway.